Okay, thank you for sticking around for part two. We're talking about the Pharisees, how the Pharisees directly relate to what's going on in banking today in the United States of America. And I hate even saying that phrase, United States of America. There's a reason for that. You got to look into it. Virginia Company. Look into the Virginia Company and the treaty that was signed that gave the American or the land owned then by the Virginia Company to the King of England, and how we are still slaves of the King of England, who is still a slave to um, the Pharisees. And the Pharisees, I believe, are still in control of the economic foundations in this country. And I'll move on with that. So, I think I was at 23:15 I just read, which is they entail compass. For yea, devour widows' houses, we said, for yea, compass sea and land. Then we go 23:16. Woe unto you, blind guides, which say, whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple is a debtor. Interesting choice of words here that Jesus uses. For whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. Whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing. So what he's saying here is the Pharisees are making it more important to swear by the gold of the temple. If you know anything about the Vatican, you know of their worth. They are worth. They have. They bought up the gold in the economy. Their net worth is insane. If they probably won't tell us what it is, it's so incredible. The Vatican is behind, or were behind, the first Bank of England, which became the first time that England used fiat money or a fiat currency based on law, nothing else. It's not based on gold, not based on silver. And once again, this dates back to Babylonian times. They were the creators of this system. They were the Pharisees of this system. The Pharisees were these. They were the bankers. The bankers are the Pharisees. There is no difference. Jesus says here, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. A debtor. Look, Money is Debt, or Money as Debt. It's a short cartoon that tells you about how money is debt and how all money is created through debt. It's very important to know that. If you don't know that, then I'm just speaking gibberish to you. 23:17, yea, fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? So what's more important, Jesus is asking, the temple or the gold? The Pharisees say the gold, I say the temple. And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing, but whosoever sweareth by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty. Yea, fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifieth the gift? 23:20, whoso therefore shall swear by the altar, sweareth by it, and by all things thereon. And whoso shall swear by the temple, sweareth by it, and by him that dwelleth therein. And he goes on, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites. This is 23:23. For ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, or anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. Why are you ensuring tax paid on products instead of ensuring that neighbors treat neighbors accordingly? That men act upon men in goodwill. Instead, you're using economics. You're using the money, the gold. You're using the fact that all men have become debtors under the temple. Okay? So instead of being a part of the temple, that's what a true man is. We are debtors. We are under the temple. The temple is the gold. The gold of the temple is greater than any man, therefore we are in its debt. This is the same thing that is happening in America today. We are born with a debt, a number that we owe just to balance things in our economy. Instead of being born a person, or more than that, instead of being born a natural person, a real true human being, you're being born a certificate of birth and a social security number. That's what you are. The government doesn't acknowledge you as a natural person. You are an artificial person of the state. A business, a corporation is a person. There is no difference. Person, corporation, business. These three things are all the same. They are debtors in debt to the state. You come in to the state in debt to it, already owing the state something. Jesus was just explaining how the Pharisees continued to lead those who could not see blindly, because the Pharisees could not see. They were blind as well. And he goes on, yea, blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye may clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. 23:26. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. 23:27. This is important. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites, for ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanliness. Remember the importance of dead men's bones to symbolism of the Knights Templar, also of the Freemason Society, dead men's bones. It's part of their basic symbolism. They use the skull and crossbones, which is part of the Yale initiation process, the skull and crossbones. So I've found this symbology dating back to Indian or South Polynesian islands. You will see this skull and crossbones because it was brought there by the white race many, many years ago. We're talking, at least 3000 BC to 2000 BC, somewhere in that time. A white race came and broke bread with the natives of such and such land. At the time, there was a continent in the Pacific, also known as Lemuria. It is now beneath the waves. So the Indian prophets tell us. There was a continent there, the continent of Mu, M-U. It was a beautiful place. We're told one thing, yet the people telling us this very thing are not living by the very nature of the thing that they're pushing upon us. We don't know that there's two different laws. There's law of the water, law of the land. It's important to know that. Jesus is telling us this. Mathew 23. He's breaking down what these Pharisees are, what they really are. Pharisee, Pharasee, But he knows that they're nothing. They're just blind guides. They're distorting the truth. They're making the truth what they want it to be. In law today, if you look up what a person is in the law dictionary, Black's Law Dictionary, corporation or business, you have to look up a different term, natural person, to get what you really are. A person who is under the law of God, which supersedes all law. This is civil law. But when we go to court, we're not being brought up on charges in civil law. We're being brought up under maritime law. This is why there's a gold border on the American flag in every court. This is why there's actually two flags. There's a military flag, which we fly today, that's the red, white, and blue. And there's the red and white flag, which is the American flag. It's not the law of the military. It's not the military flag. It's our real flag. Look it up. There's two flags that we actually find ourselves beneath. Whenever the military flag is flying, we're under maritime law, the law of admiralty, law of the sea. Why? If you look into the history of Georgia, Scandinavia, you will see the Venetians were the first conquerors of the sea. The Venetians took over a lot of lands, and they continued with this through what we know of as Vikings. The Vikings were a takeoff from the Venetian times. The Venetians essentially became the Babylonians. The Babylonians are the ones who supposedly went to Palestine or Israel and took with them the Jews and enslaved them in Babylonia or Mesopotamia. Well, they had priests. The Babylonian priests were called the Levites. Levitical priests then essentially infiltrated the Jewish sect, and the Leviticus priests became the Pharisees. And these were the first ones to perpetuate perpetual debt upon each and every one of us, to make us born in their debt, as if they are somehow the inferior, or we are somehow inferior to them being the superior. This is the reality of our system today. We have a bank that is privately owned mostly by foreign interests. So the Federal Reserve isn't even owned by the American people. It's owned by private interests that are mostly foreign. We can't get a list of who owns the exact names of those who own the Federal Reserve. That will not ever be given to the American people unless we demand it. The Federal Reserve has the power to print money, U.S. currency. They do this, they enforce this power by charging interest to every dollar that they give. Every cent that they give comes with interest. Interest equals a nation's debt. It becomes our national debt, or becomes a large part of it. So the interest also becomes inflation, the hidden tax on the American people. Inflation of anybody or any society that falls under a fiat money-based system has to abide by these rules. They have to get the people to believe that the system is the only system, not realizing there's two systems. This is why when you think of justice, you have a balance, a scale. Okay? We don't realize that that's what law is. Law is a scale. Civil law, common law. We fall under God's law, which is civil law. The Constitution was written to codify these laws, to put them in writing, which I find interesting again in Jesus constantly saying scribes and Pharisees, those who write the law, make the law. Those who win the wars write history. And the Pharisees have learned at a very early date to play both sides of a war. This is why when the white man came, Quetzalcoatl and the Kukulkans, they did not give them a white man who died on the cross, a Christ-like figure, as you think of in Christianity and Catholic or Jewish systems. You know, there was no Jesus who died on the cross. So we look for that when we look into some of these artifacts. We don't see that, but we do see the 5 pins that were driven into Jesus as symbolism directly linked to the Michigan tablets or the Michigan artifacts, which would show cuneiform writing, which is cuneiform script, which is the script of the Babylonians. We are all children of Babylon today if we are American. or they want us to be. It's important that we know what's going on. It's an illusion. It's not real. You have to agree to be artificial person. You're not born an artificial person. You're born a natural person without a name. It's when you give yourself a name and a social security number that you become an entity of the state. And this was all done through distorting definitions of words. They made the words, they gave them dual definitions, sometimes 3 or 4 definitions, to confuse us. For if we knew the truth, would revolution not be far behind? I challenge you to look into Mathew 23, to look into what Jesus is saying, and look into what is happening in banking today, and tell me there's not a similar trait. Tell me they're not the same entity. I challenge you. And I love you. So good luck. I hope you see the light.